Family from Perth was driving to Melbourne. They were just west of the South Australian border. At 5:30 Western Australian time this morning, they say a bright light appeared above them, picked up their blue Ford Telstar, shook it and then dropped it, bursting a tyre, denting the vehicle and leaving ash inside and out. It was broad daylight. Coming the other way, a semi-trailer and a third vehicle. The semi-driver has reported the same amazing story. Faye Knowles and her 3 grown-up children were in shock when they told their story to Ceduna Police. Officer in charge, Jim Fennell, related to us the terrifying account of the moments following the Knowles' supposed close encounter.
The occupants left the car, ran into the scrub and hid. The object came back again and circled around and flew off.
Do you have any reason to doubt their story at all?
Well, I saw the people. They were certainly scared. They were visibly shaken. No, I have no reason to doubt that something happened. And also, bearing in mind that a semi-trailer driver and not a motorist witnessed it.
This afternoon we spoke exclusively to Sean Knowles, who was in the car at the time, and he has no doubts at all about his astounding story.
When it was on our car, once I got the blowout, and we had this, all of us, we had this real weird feeling going through us.
How do you feel now?
Oh, I don't feel too bad now.
The Knowles family have been advised by police to have their car checked out by scientific experts in Adelaide. This is Mike Smithson for 7 News.
The Knowles family was today still battling to come to grips with their outback ordeal, which has flung them into the international spotlight.
They can believe what they want, but what I believe, what I have seen, like I said, if they don't want to believe it, they can. It's their problem, yeah.
The Knowles claim they were hounded by a bright egg-shaped object as they were travelling along the air highway near the South Australian border early Wednesday morning. Yesterday, visibly shocked family members told 7 News how, when they'd attempted to get away from it by travelling at up to 200 kilometres an hour, the object landed on their car and lifted it off the ground. They told how they felt like they were dying, their voices changed, and their car was shrouded in a putrid black mist when they opened their windows. Mrs. Knowles described touching a spongy object on top of the car before it lost its grip. Wollongong research physicist Glenn Moore says the sighting of a bright light, violent shaking, vehicle damage, the smell and depositing of powdery material are consistent with the falling of what's called a carbonaceous meteorite. As for the other circumstances which defy logical explanation...
There are some aspects of it that I have difficulty with. I can't comment in detail about some of the things they said. I noticed some confusion as to whether the car was actually picked up or not. I certainly could understand the massive shockwave that would push the car down, because in some cases where very large meteorites have fallen, trees have been knocked down, leaves stripped off trees by the pressure wave.
It's now a matter of tests being carried out on the dust found in the Knowles car. Forensic police have taken samples, but results won't be known until next week. Of all the attention the incident has attracted, at least one effort is worth a chuckle. The Knowles say their rear right car tyre burst during their encounter, and police and locals say it's a miracle the car didn't roll, killing them. A great promotion for their tyres, perhaps, and the Dunlop company was first off the mark, with this full-page ad worth $10,000 in today's Australian, assuming the Knowles car wasn't equipped with one of their treads. But they got it wrong, all because nobody bothered to check their facts. The Knowles blue Ford Telstar was in fact fitted with Dunlop Grand Prix radials. While there might be a few red faces ducking UFOs at Dunlop, they have scored some additional free publicity. Maybe next week you'll see an ad reading something like this. Now, what about Ford? How can they go past a Telstar being hit by an ET? Astrid Adzis, 7 News.
7 News impounded the Knowles car in Woodner on South Australia's Eyre Peninsula, then hired scientists from the Australian Mineral Development Laboratories to carry out extensive tests on it. The Knowles maintain a UFO buzzed their blue Ford Telstar early Wednesday along the Nullarbor, then briefly lifted off the highway, causing the rear right tyre to burst. The terrified family also claimed the inside of the car shook violently and became filled with a foul-smelling mist and a black powdery substance.
I swear to God, I'm not lying. I swear to God, I opened up my window, the car started going out of control. And all this smoke, and it was like smoke. I'm not lying. It was like smoke, and gases all started coming in the car. And me and my brother started to go crazy, you know. I thought I was going in my head. Felt like my brain was getting sucked out.
Amdel scientist Monty Luke went over the car thoroughly before taking samples back to Adelaide for more comprehensive testing. The results released exclusively today show there's no evidence to support the Knowles claims a UFO landed and dented the roof or had been responsible for the damaged tyre and material found on the car.
Oh, the material that we found on the brakes, or behind the brakes on the front of the car is fairly typical of abraded brake linings and the brake disc. So it's quite typical material be found on the inside underneath most cars in Australia.
And what about that shredded tyre?
No, I've seen this sort of structure before. It's quite typical of a tyre that's been driven on.
While that explains the damage to the family's car, nobody knows for sure what came out of the sky over Mundrabilla. Although their UFO sighting has been backed up by locals, others travelling on the same stretch of road, and a similar sighting of Port Lincoln. Something did scare the wits out of the Knowles family, but it seems a coincidental tyre blowout greatly contributed to their distress and their bizarre story of cosmic bulldust. In Melbourne today, the family say they're sticking to their version that's got the whole world buzzing.
They're saying it's sort of calling us liars, and that's not true. What we know what happened to us, and did happen to us. There's definitely something out there.
Meanwhile, the results of police tests won't be known until the end of next week. Frank Pangallo, 7 News.
The spotlight has now fallen on one of the most remote corners of Australia. Outsiders have become curiouser and curiouser about sightings which have always held enormous fascination. But the down-to-earth locals on the Nullarbor and Eyre Peninsula will say matter-of-factly that seeing UFOs is nothing new. But they mostly keep their experiences to themselves because they say no one would believe them anyway. Alan Stewart is the Highways Department foreman at Mundrabilla, where the Knowles family allege their UFO encounter. He staunchly believes in UFOs after seeing them regularly in the area over many years.
I've seen lights stop, move, turn, circles. Like meteorite satellites don't do U-turns. They go straight line. You stop and turn.
Alan, in fact, believes he saw the same light the Knowles family were terrified of a few hours later.
There was a light hanging around. There was some light go across the north and one went northwest, then it turned. I sat out that morning about 2 o'clock in the morning. I sat out for about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
And there are many similar case histories.
Just driving along at night time, just after 9 o'clock, I saw this great big light hovering in the air. Or, I don't know how far away, but to me it looked like about 10, 12 k's, and it just was there for about 5 to 7 minutes, and it just seemed to disappear.
The level-headed locals all speak of bright lights which travel very fast, change directions many times, are very silent even though they appear close by, and which disappear almost magically. Well, what do you think about that family from Western Australia who had that experience on the Nullarbor?
Well, I believe it has to be a UFO. Yeah, I believe it. Mm.
Tests by Adelaide scientists on the blue Ford Telstar have ruled out the claim by the Knowles family of Perth that a UFO landed on the car's roof and lifted it off the road. Analysis of black material on the car reveals it's mostly iron oxide, consistent with residue from worn brake linings. And they say the almost perfect cut on the right rear tyre was probably caused by driving a considerable distance on the rim, which may also explain the violent shaking and putrid-smelling smoke that filled the interior. The family has rejected the findings and is adamant an egg-shaped object attacked their car early Wednesday morning. The Victorian-based UFO Research Society, the oldest group of its kind in Australia, isn't convinced by the results either. The Society is sending one of its investigators to Adelaide to collect more samples and check for electromagnetic activity. These will be sent to the United States, where they'll be analysed by Princeton University astrophysicist Dr. Bruce Maccabee and the Arizona-based Ground Saucer Watch Organisation. The UFO Research Society says if confirmed, the Mundrabilla incident could become one of the world's most significant UFO reports.
In fact, this family is very important to us because from what we've been able to establish and what other people have told us, they're not the type who would set up a fake. In other words, they're basically not interested in UFOs. They're just coming from Western Australia to Victoria and encountered this, what it could be UFO or whatever it is, natural phenomena.
South Australian police are expected to reveal results of their tests later this week. Frank Pangallo, 7 News. Paul Norman and John Octel from the UFO Research Society examined the blue Ford Telstar said to have been attacked by a UFO a fortnight ago. They carried out a series of tests, including one for electromagnetic activity, then took samples from the car. Veteran UFO investigator Paul Norman says his initial inspection appears to back up the account by the Knowles family that something attacked, then lifted the car off the air highway, causing a tyre to blow.
I am convinced that they were telling that they were seeing an object of some kind, and they'd interfere with their car.
The researchers say they're satisfied the report by the Knowles family warrants further investigation.
So what we're looking for when we're doing these investigations, looking for faults in their story. At this stage we've seen nothing at all. What they've indicated in the car is right. We found the black material, found the markings, the damage to the car, it's exactly how they said it was. They also indicated they were doing 200k, which is impossible on the ground for one of these cars, but we did a test here and we've got it up to 200k's with the front wheels jacked up. So it really gives the impression that the car was, or gives the idea the car was actually physically lifted up.
Samples taken from the car will be sent to Princeton University astrophysicist Dr. Bruce Maccabee for further analysis. However, the results aren't expected to be known for at least a month. Meanwhile, the Knowles family is remaining in hiding in Melbourne. They will undergo a detailed medical examination tomorrow. Members of the family have been forced to seek medical treatment for stress and nervous exhaustion brought about by their terrifying experience. Frank Pangallo, 7 News.
And whatever category Western Australia's Knowles family fell into last week, well, you can bet that they're true believers now. Their close encounter took place early yesterday morning on the Nullarbor Plain, an area notorious for sightings, but never anything this physical. Thanks very much for joining us from Adelaide. Patrick, let me ask you first, can you explain to us what really did happen?
What happened? This is where well, we're going along the highway in between, it was kind of like on the border of South Australia and Western Australia. We were driving along there, and we just did normal speed and that, and I was a bit tired. Sean and Mum way more awake, and we noticed this light ahead of us, and we thought, oh, that's a truck, you know. We all thought that actually at first, and it started to get a bit closer. I thought, this is strange, and it kind of disappeared like it went off the road, and it seemed to, you know, kind of fade and jump about a bit. And as we got closer, it just kind of seemed to move away, and when we got close, it just kind of come back in towards us.
All right, so what happened then?
Well, we just kept on driving, and it kind of disappeared. Next minute, you know, it was right behind us, and my brother started planting his foot. He must have been doing at least 200 k's, and it just started to follow him.
So, Sean, you were driving. What did you do?
I planted my foot right down, and I got up to about 200 kilometres.
200 kilometres an hour, you were driving at that speed? What was going through your mind?
I was hoping to get away from the thing. And we seen it in front of us again. So I turned back, and the next minute it was up the hills flying. And so I turned back again. I had to look behind us to see if it was still up there. It was still up there. And the next second it was on the roof.
It was on the roof of your car?
It was on the roof of the car. And as soon as it was on the roof, my back tyre blew out at 200 kilometres an hour.
All right, so what happened then?
As soon as the car stopped, I just blinked out, and that's all I know.
All right, what about the rest of you?
We were screaming and yelling, and we didn't know what to do, you know?
We wound down the windows, all this black misty, like a smoke and a light, and we all felt really strange. Our voice started changing, and everything just went really weird.
You say your voices started changing?
Yeah,
It started to sound like aliens or something. Like it was draining our minds. It was really weird.
Wayne, what was happening? What were your thoughts at that particular time?
I thought we were going to die.
Were you saying anything to each other that you could understand?
Yeah, I mean, the alien, I said, I'm going to get you all. That's what I said.
All right. Can any of you describe exactly, or as closely as you can, what this looked like?
It was sort of shaped like this and had a round, looked like it was yellow, and on the side of it looked like it had sort of bird wings. It's weird.
All right. Look, could you understand, some Australians, maybe a lot of Australians, may not quite believe. They could understand that you're shocked, they could understand that you were tired, but they may not quite believe
that's not
what
true.
you're telling us.
I don't care, but that's what happened to us.
You see, if they don't want to believe it, it's up to them, but if it ever happens to them,
then
and if it ever comes on, then they'll believe it.
So what do you think now about what happened to you?
We don't really know what happened, you know?
What do I think?
We thought we were going to die.
Well, what I think, is I'm not saying believe in it, or don't believe in it. I'm just saying, it happened to us, and that's
It did
all I
happen
can
to
say.
us.
And there was a couple of truckies that did see us. They didn't stop for us. They sent us run out the bushes to try to call them over. They would not stop for us because they thought we were abos or something. Because out in the bush, you're not going to stop for anyone, are you?
All right, you're in Adelaide now. You're on your way to Melbourne. When do you head back to Perth?
In 2 weeks' time.
You're driving back?
No, we're not. No way.
You're not going to?
Like I said, I don't know what's going to happen with the car.
What do you mean, what's going to happen with the car?
Like it could have radiation in the car.
But somebody suggested that to you, haven't
Yes.
So, and there's another thing. There's 2 guys from America. If they didn't believe this, now explain this. There's 2 guys from America would have come in down here to suss the car out.
All right, so what you're saying to us that you're too scared to drive back
That's
across the
right.
Nullarbor plain after what
true.
happened to you?
Yeah? Terrified.
So you're going by train, eh?
Yeah?
Okay, well, we wish you all the best, and we thank you very much for talking to us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks a lot.
and let's hope they get to the bottom of the mystery. Thanks for
hope
joining
so.
us. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
We'll be back in just a moment.